Hi guys, welcome to Windsome Cottage Garden. My name is Hannah and I'm so glad that you decided to join me today. We are in the home garden and I actually still have some videos that you will be seeing at the cottage garden after this one, but I wanted to break in a moment and do a June garden tour here at our home garden. If you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Hannah. I garden in zone 6B here in West Michigan. And we document two gardens. So I have this home garden as well as a cottage garden where we'll be doing an end of June garden tour soon. But I wanted to come in and show you all the progress that we've made on this new home garden. I moved last fall, late-ish around the end of September, beginning of October. And I don't think I've been doing monthly garden tours here in this space. But I asked you guys a couple weeks ago if you'd like to see them or how frequently, and the answer I got was we'd really like to see it. And to be honest, we've made a ton of progress in the last month in making this garden my own. And a lot has changed even since we did the last tour, which I think was March-ish. I'll link it below so you can see what it was looking like as it was just waking up for the year. And it's going to be exciting to take a moment and pause and show you what it looks like now because there are more changes coming yet this gardening season. And even though it's, in the baby stages, it's still looking really, really good. One of the things we've already done is actually this bed behind me. So let's take a closer look. It was probably done about 2 or 3 weeks ago and things are doing really well. To orient you guys, I'm at the side of my house. This is a fence my dad built last fall. It's one of the first things we did. And we installed this bed with plants, mostly that I brought over from my old city garden, which we did document on this channel, and established it using a cardboard mulch method. Oh, I haven't even seen this yet. Okay, this is a Japanese iris. I don't know what it's called. I'm gonna have to go and look at it, but I always love when they open. They don't have like the standards that some do. Their falls are bigger, and it's a huge bloom. Let's see, my hand for perspective. This is probably about a third a clump that we took when we were moving. And it'll actually get a bit taller. I think it's still a little sad because it spent a lot of time in its can, but that is so exciting to see. We also have in this same space a big red peony, which is actually what prompted me to get this started. And I think this one is looking a little heat and rain damage, so it might not end up coming, but it has big red blooms. This should actually be already bloomed out by this time, so it was a little delayed. Standing back, you can see we have a lupin that we have one bloom that's gone, but another that's coming. This is a seedling we brought from the old house. But then we also have a number of seedlings from our winter sowing project to accompany it, as well as Hosta's looking great, coming along really, really well. And other bits and bobs just kind of packed in here. We did have 4 quickfire fab hydrangeas that we bought and planted last fall for this space. And they are beginning to bloom. They've got really great bud set. I didn't even really do a ton of pruning on them this year, other than fertilizing. And again, this space is starting to shape up. Things in this area, we've got some coneflowers I got from my friend Julie that are starting. They were just bare root plants. So I'm glad to see that they survived. And this is a white glitter eryngium. It'll get paler as time goes on. But I thought this would be a pretty place to let it self-seed a little bit. Now we did have 2 videos where we planted this out, as well as where we defined the border and I talked about our method. I actually am already thinking that I might want to change it, maybe this year, maybe not, and just bring it along a little bit more and curve it into my neighbors to make this a little bit easier, because this tree, which I think is quite pretty, I don't know what it is, but it's got all these, they're berries or buds, I'm not sure. If you guys know what this tree is, please let me know. But it's hard to mow under from my side and my neighbor's side, and I was thinking about just making it a little bit easier. I've also been thinking about coming in with some of the shade plants I have in my plant hoard right here as well, so that might be something you see in the near future. Going over here, we haven't done a lot. We did plant a dogwood, which is doing really well. And things have just been kind of kept up. This hydrangea was here obviously when I moved in, and I'm not super fond of lace cap hydrangeas, but there is something really pretty about this. You can also tell I have higher pH soil because it is blue This is one that changes based on the pH, so that's good to note. This is a bed that I've got some changes I'd like to make in the near future to it. And it's just finding the time kind of thing. There's also going to be some changes over here probably in the next month that you will see, because I want to kind of come in and add a circle focal point in this space. But one of the things I've struggled with, which I've talked about, as you can see right here, there is landscape fabric. This landscape fabric is everywhere. I think the previous owners intended to use it as a means of weed suppression, but they kept putting mulch on top of it, and now it just means it's about 6 inches deep, and there's soil on top of it and weeds growing through it. So it needs to be dug out and all these beds redefined, which is going to be quite a process. So that's something I've been kind of putting off doing, but it's gonna have to happen sooner rather than later. This is a bed I haven't really touched. I've got a lot of things I have to take care of, but there's like some gems, like there's gonna still be growing in here. I've got some sedum. I have a whole host of stellodora, which is not my favorite. I also have this beautiful Japanese maple, which is doing well. So it just needs to kind of be addressed. A butterfly bush, some iris, grass growing through it. And over here as well, more things. I love this Hakanakloa, so I'm pleased, but I think I might shift these boxwoods elsewhere and kind of redefine this. I think this would be a great spot for some Annabelle hydrangea. It would look really pretty. Just lots of things that I'm considering as I start picking areas that I want to focus on. This front yard is one that I'll probably focus on more in the immediate future because it's in the shade a lot, and we are nearing the hotter part of the summer. We're actually in the middle of a heat wave right now where we have excessive heat warnings. I'm doing this in the earlier morning where it's supposed to rain today. I'm hoping that means that the heat is broken. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But I've come into the backyard. I'm actually gonna hop on the deck and show you a view that I've shown you in other garden tours, so you can just take in everything that's happened since our last garden tour. Have been issued their invitation to join me. And I'm gonna start over here and just do the slow pan that I've done a couple of different times from this position. I do have an umbrella up, which is kind of blocking the view a little bit. But you can see, if you just saw our last March tour, there's a lot of trees that are gone. We removed 3 trees. 1, 2, 3, they were clumps, so it may have looked like they were more. And we've planted some trees, which I'll go give you an update on those a little bit in a moment. We also removed arborvitaes that were here. I think there's 2 or 3. That was like a solid wall to about here. And it didn't really provide any additional privacy because we have a big, beautiful spruce tree that kind of provides privacy for our neighbor's deck and my deck. And we couldn't see any of this, not to mention it was blocking a lot of natural light in these windows. Now this is southern facing. I have a lot of windows southern facing, which is great in the winter when it's sunny here, which is not that often, in the fall and the spring. But now that we've entered the hot days, I have to keep my shades shut, and it makes a huge difference in terms of energy efficiency. But I still appreciate it. Still get the nice dappled light through the shades. And having this gone, I think makes the whole view just look so much better from inside and out. So removed, I think there's 2 arborvitae here that were really big and overgrown, and some yew bushes, which were just collecting spiders. And I still have it on my list to put railing in. I don't know why they were able to do this without railing. Luckily, anytime I've had little visitors, we've been inside. And it's something that I'm hoping we can do sooner rather than later. We also want to change some stuff, and the deck's days are numbered. I think it needs to be redecked. I'm hoping I can reuse the supports, though. I'm a little not sure, and I'd love to do like a composite that I don't have to do maintenance on. And at that time, I'd like to move this step from here over, so when you leave the house, you kind of go down and then cross. Because this is just a very narrow path, maybe 2 feet. I'd like to make it at least 3. And it means you can't really have furniture right here, which means the furniture is oriented, pointed towards a wall versus the beauty. So by moving it, I'd kind of rejig stuff And that gives planting space for right here. That would be pretty. But that's a future plan. I've got lots of future plans in this area. And before I dive in and show you over there, let's take a moment to check in on the abundant garden. We planted these potatoes just like a week ago, and I was like not sure what was going to happen because I left planting them way too long. They'd sat in a very warm garage for like a month, the seed potatoes at least. And then some of the potatoes we had were just ones we bought that had gone to seed that were probably in there longer. But they are growing really well, at least 2 rows, and I think there's more coming. These are the 3 seed potatoes. You can see there's one popping up here. And this one didn't have as extensive roots as those, as neither did these. So, oh, there's one over here too. Yeah, so I think they're coming. It'll be a nice big row of potatoes. But you can see that the tomato plants have put on quite a lot of growth since we last checked in. I actually need to come in and do some pruning and tying up. I've been gone and haven't done it. I have some weird leaf stuff going on. I don't know what this is. Maybe it's like reacting. I would almost think it's been sprayed by something. I hope not. But there's a couple of them that have it. And then there's ones that look fine. Or they look like this when they start out, but then expand. So these are all my cherry tomatoes. And as usual, the first to fruit is a cherry tomato. This is a Jasper. And I bet if I looked closer, I'd have more. I'm not really seeing any, but I pulled off a lot of blossoms while I was planting them. I've been dealing with something eating things. I had a little dahlia that I stuck here because it broke and I just popped it in the ground and it survived, but it's now being chewed by things. My pea trellises are doing well. Most of them have sprouted. This bed we had some brassicas that are beginning to put on growth. I put some arugula in. The onions took well. This is looking great. Over here as well. Tomatoes doing well. There's one tomato, I think it's this one. Yes. That has lots of different fruit. And this is a normal sized one. A Dr. Wishi's. So that's exciting. I think they like the soil that we put in these beds. But what hasn't liked it, so we just pop over here. I talked about this in a previous video. Something's been decimating my bean plants. And they're pushing growth, they're trying. These are all Dragon Tongue's bush beans. But I have none of the Blue Lake bush beans that have come up. And I think I'm going to root around in there the next couple days to see if I can find it after I do some pruning and reseed if needed. Maybe it was just a bad packet. But that's disappointing. The packet would have been an older one. And I soaked them. Maybe I soaked them too long. I'll have to double check. But I'm surprised that I haven't had any germinate. That would suggest something came and ate them, but I did keep away, and all of my Dragon Tongue bush beans came up. So it would be weird to me that something would eat those, but not the Dragon Tongue bush beans when they're in the same area. So I think it's possible, but unlikely. And we'll just have to do some more investigating. Also looking great. Again, some weird stuff happening with the leaves that are coming up. And some big blossoms. Look at this one. But no tomatoes as of yet. Oh, I tell a lie. Look at that. Oh, and here. I am telling a lie. That's exciting. So tomatoes. Oh, and look, there's some right there. Gosh. There's just tomatoes everywhere. That's really exciting. And then we also have germination on the carrots, which is also in this bed. Pea trellis doing well. And lots of little carrot babies. There's some areas that didn't quite have as much. But there's going to be enough here for me. And maybe I'll move some stuff around. Carrots don't love that, but I can try it, see what happens. Either way, this was a rainbow mix, which will be good. And our pepper plants are doing really well. We have fruit all over them. Like here's some corbachis getting started. Let's see. There's some over here as well. Green peppers, yellow horn. I think I have a lot of green peppers. And the snack box peppers are also starting. In fact, they've come on so quickly. I would bet that I'll be harvesting this by the end of the month, which would be exciting. Though I have, as you can see, dealt with some pest pressure here as well, and on the zinnias that I popped in this area. They seem to be recovering and responding well, so I'm not going to worry too much about it. Moving along, here's another view of those gorgeous beds, and I need to cut the grass around them. These all took fairly well. I still haven't come along and pinched them, but we have more flowers, and they seem to be earlier varieties, so I wonder if these are all the same variety that are going sooner. But I did want to briefly touch on these two oak leaf hydrangeas. Last year, the thing we actually planted in this yard was those oak leaf hydrangeas, and it was part of a hedge of 5. At the time, I was planning to keep the big hemlocks that I took down, and this was a very shaded area. Long story short, I had to remove them to create space for the vegetable garden and light for the vegetable garden. And at that time, when we were taking the trees down, I popped 3 of them out that were going to be damaged and kept 2. And I'm kind of thinking I'm going to keep one of them, but I might shift another. I'm not sure. This one eventually is going to get a little too close to the garden bed, so I'm leaning towards pulling it out sooner rather than later. I'm leaving this one to be like a specimen type thing, and potentially putting this guy down under the pine. I just am not entirely sold on that because this Ann Magnolia will get big. And I'm curious because it's going to get big, but it's going to take 10-15 years before it gets big. And I'm wondering, your philosophy towards plants like this. Obviously, I don't want to plant things that I have to move. I'm trying to leave space for anchor plants and don't mind moving smaller perennials. But shrubs like this oak leaf hydrangea, I don't know if I want to plant it in a space that I know I'm going to have to move it very quickly. I'm curious if you guys have a rule of thumb that you go by. I might, looking at it, kind of do it a little further along. When we get over there, I'll talk about it a little bit more. But I'm toying with the idea of putting one over there and then taking the 3 I pulled out and popping them in the front. Popping over here again, when we removed the hemlocks, we planted 3 trees. This is a weeping Alaskan cedar, and it has dealt with a little bit of like shock. Like, that's the only thing I can think of that this is. Some yellowing inside. Now, it's not the whole thing, and I think it's beginning to put on some new growth. Like, the tips are a slightly different color, which to me is new growth. So I'm hoping that means it's settling in its spot and stopping the needle drop. That's what I keep telling myself. Anyway, because I really, really want this to keep. And then we also have my rose holding area where they bake in the sun. And I think I talked about potentially picking up 2 more Atlas roses, and I did. So those will be planted soon. We have our crabapple, which this is a Donald Wyman crabapple we planted. And it's got a little bit of something going on that started after we brought it home. I did a neem oil supplement. I'm going to do some horticultural oil. I'm sure it'll be fine, but it doesn't seem to be stressed in its circumstances at all. And what is definitely not stressed is this Sengokaku Japanese maple. It is doing really well. It's responding to the staking well. I haven't even come and done some of the weighing down I talked about because having it more upright, the wind has kind of begun to open it in a really pleasing way. And I actually think that these leaves look better too than they did. And I'm wondering if it being blown about was causing more stress, and it's happier in its spot. You can see our holding area. Things are looking really good. We'll go look at a couple things closer. But one thing I do want to address really quickly is this part of the holding area where all these plants came from my friend Julie. And something I learned in the process because of a comment one of you made. You watched the video where I planted some of these plants and actually got them in a holding area. You will know that there were a large number of hostas also here. I think I probably had 18 different hostas that I got from Julie because she has this beautiful shade garden. And one of you, Tina, thank you, commented and said, hey, you might want to look at one of them closely because I had pointed out a leaf. I'll see if I can find it, where I thought the pitting I saw was just part of the plant, and I thought it was really cool. And she said, I actually think that's something called ink bleed, which is a sign of something called Hosta variant X, which is a really bad disease. I Googled it. I thought she was right. I reached out to one of my friends who's a master gardener as well as our local extension office and asked them if they could confirm based on the pictures I sent And they said yes, they did think it was. They said, you know, they might not think it was necessarily what they would call ink bleed, but there are other signs in the plant that it had this disease. Hosta variant X, which I've learned a lot about in this process, is highly transmissible and it only affects hostas. Now, from what I understand, and if you are a hosta enthusiast, you might disagree with this, it mostly affects the aesthetic of the plant and can interfere with them photosynthesizing. So it's not something you want in your yard. It is also, as I said, highly transmissible. It transmits through the sap of the tissue of hostas. So it can be done with roots touching each other. If you use the same things to prune one plant and kind of go down the line, if you deal with deer and they come and eat a plant that is infected and then continue chomping, their teeth can transmit it. It's just really, really bad and easily transmitted. So once it was determined that some of the plants, or 4 specifically, definitely had it, if you are not using methods to make sure you're preventing it, so that's like, for example, if you are pruning a plant that has it, you have to clean your pruners or anything you use. If you divided it, the spade you divided, you have to clean it with a 20% bleach solution before you go to a different plant. And you should really clean it before and after, which is a lot when you're dealing with hundreds of hostas, which is what Julie did. And I knew she didn't do that because I don't think she hadn't realized, I hadn't realized this plant had this issue. So I immediately, once I figured that out, followed what I was told, where I took them out of this holding area. I'm not going to be planting hostas in this section for 10 years because that's how long it can live in the soil, and destroyed them. Now, I went with a friend, that master gardener friend. We went back to Julie's house and walked around her yard, and it looked like they were only in the front of the yard, which is really great. But it's likely that the others are carriers, and it can take up to 4 years for them to show signs. Since it's not something I believe I have in my yard, it's not something I wanted to risk introducing it, even if some of those plants weren't showing signs of having it, because they had been pruned with the same like tools without the cleaning, which I would do too if you didn't know anything about this. I decided not to introduce any of them to my yard. My friend Julie removed the ones that were diseased and is going to just kind of monitor and hope that she can contain it, because I feel some of those hostas she had were hostas from her dad, who has been gone quite a long time. They have sentimental value to her. She's had them for 20 plus years, and every time she sees them, she thinks of her dad. So I'm glad that she decided not to remove all the hostas, just to see what she could do for that quarantine period, and hope that it works out, because it's such a bummer on so many different levels. And like, it stings, even if it doesn't sting for me, knowing that those have such sentimental value to her and they might be diseased. She's going to contain them, not share them, so she's not spreading the disease. But it just is a bummer. So thank you, Tina, for mentioning that that's what you thought it was. I'm sad for myself too that all those hostas I did destroy, and I was really excited about some of them, and I'll still introduce other hostas to the garden, just not in this area, and hopefully I contained it so nothing spread. I think it was 4 days between when I got them in here, saw the comment, and decided, researched enough to take action. So, mini lesson, Hosta variant X. Was introduced because of this ink bleed disease, which is where colors are mutating in unusual ways. That's a sign you see before the actual degradation of the tissue, which is what interferes with photosynthesizing. Breeders have, as they're trying to come up with new Hosta variants, they're actually breeding for some of this disease. So I've learned that it's epidemic in the US, and likely that it will kind of be here to stay, and most houses are going to have them. So it may have saved a little bit of time, but I bet I'm going to be learning more about it in the next couple of years, and that it's going to make its way here. And we'll all learn how to deal with it, because there's nothing that I believe there's not a cure for it, other than destroying the plant and trying not to spread it, which is hard to do. So there's your mini lesson on Hosta variant X and the bad, sad news about why there are no more hostas I'm going to be planting from my friend Julie. But good news, lots of things in the holding area are looking great. And I just want to kind of walk through them and show you And then in a couple months, you'll be able to see all of the plants that have made it out into the yard, because my goal is to get 85% of the plants in my holding area planted this year, which might not seem like a lot. You should be like, why not? Why aren't you trying 100%? I have hundreds of plants still in my holding area. So it's just going to take some time. And they're happy enough. They're getting watered. They like their lot in life. Let's go take a look at a few of them. I got a couple. So there's these two things are actually also from Julie. I got some baby oak leaf hydrangea that are a different kind than my oak leaf hydrangea. You can see here's the three I popped out of the ground. They have a slightly different leaf structure, and I think these are going to get bigger than the ones I have, which is they're more upright, which is exciting. The Annabelle seedlings that I took are doing well. I've got all my sedum and ground cover. This clematis has bloomed. It wants to live well. This is a very small bud. Usually they're bigger. But this is going to be planted quite soon. And everything is looking well. This is a eastern redbud we planted when we were placing trees, getting it in the ground. My hibiscus that I thought I killed when I transplanted it last year was covered with bugs, but doing well. And everything, the peonies bloomed. I enjoyed them. We've got lavender blooming. And my coleus are all here that I need to get in the ground. I popped them here because they get watered well, and I only have to come in with supplements. I did pick up an Amber Jubilee 9 bark that I'm going to be planting in the yard. And you guys, the hostas, these all came from my house, are doing so well. We have a mock orange that I stole from the cottage holding area that I'm going to plant. But these are loving its place, and I am excited to start getting some of the shade plants in the ground in the front. Oh, and actually you can see from here, all these hellebores that I planted are doing fairly well. I'm dealing with some creeping things in this bed. You can see we have Virginia creeper, which is a nuisance in our area. I also have some plants that I'm fairly sure are like over here. I'm pretty sure this is actually poison ivy. And every time I come out and see it, I'm not wearing the proper protection to deal with it, which is a bummer. This whole area is actually a bit of a weedy mess, except for the ferns and hydrangea I brought. I should probably make it a priority to get that in the ground too, because it's not as happy in its can. But then there's random things that have popped up in the weedy mess that I'm excited about, like this redbud that I'm gonna let continue grow on in sides and then move somewhere else. And our holly is doing really, really well too. Cloud cover has gone. I came out early to try and do this before it got super hot. I think it's supposed to get over actual temps over 90 today, and real feel even hotter because it's quite humid right now, which we get this in like August and July, but June is a tiny bit early. Anyway, I want to do another check-in on the other seedlings we got planted as part of our cutting garden progress. I suspected they're greening up. I think they were a little nutritional deficient in they were like 1-inch pots they were in. So the new leaves that are coming on are really green. These dahlias are doing well that we planted from ones we pre-started. And these zinnias are popping too. Look, we've got blooms everywhere, like the Cinderella peach. These guys are just, that is not supposed to be here. This is supposed to be queen lime. I think I must be losing a tag. Because that is not a queen lime red. I'm dealing with some chipmunks forming holes that I'm trying to keep out, but again, not bad. And this area is actually where I was thinking about the oak leaf hydrangea. I would love to put one here, but that definitely would be blocked by Ann Magnolia. So I'm thinking of actually right where the milk jug is, closer to the base of the tree. Seeing if I stick one there, how it would do. And turning this into a shade garden. I'd actually like to turn this into a secret garden. Right now I have the milk jugs I haven't planted in here. They're doing okay. They're a little sad. They need to get planted. This one in particular is looking kind of weird. But progress, not perfection. they'll be okay for a little while as I sort stuff out. But I'd like to turn this into a secret garden, probably not this year or next year. But can't you just see building like a wall so you have a nice flat area? And a skinny garden over here. I'd like to do like maybe something over the window to make it interesting. And then like gravel with a cute little seat so you could be like a little reading nook. It's probably gonna be a while before I do it because this is such a like hidden away area. I need to come in and mow the grass. Then I'm probably gonna do some stones so I don't have to maintain it because it's not easy to get to. But I have vision. I have lots of vision, actually. So much vision, scopes of vision. And I've made great progress, don't get me wrong. I mean, the trees coming down, these new trees coming in, anchor plants being added. We didn't even talk about the trellis that we've added and the roses that I finally got planted from my hoard. But there's so much that I want to do. I just need to slow my roll and celebrate the progress I have made while I allow my budget to recuperate for the progress I still want to make. Speaking of still want to make, this is an area that we're going to be working a little bit and off and on. There is wheatberry fabric here. It's something that I need to do some more investigating because I know these are my septic tanks, which fried early on. So I'm trying to water them. I don't know if the grass will live. I'll probably reseed it in the fall after the heat has passed. But so my septic tanks are here. My drainage field, according to the township, is right here. But I ran into something over here that one of you said you thought might be a septic field. I need to talk to one of my neighbors who was here when this was happening and probably has a better idea of spacing. I'd like to do that before I call the township and start asking questions. So I understand the scope of what I'm asking before I ask it. And I'll be really bummed. I just can't imagine this because what we ran into was fabric that was 18 inches deep, wheatberry fabric, and then below it was perfectly level sand. But it started like right at the edge, the fence side edge of that bed, and it was running towards my neighbor's property. So if you have a 10-foot setback where you're not allowed to put septic things that close, that is not honoring the setback. So would not have been permitted and is running towards my neighbor's property. I don't understand what it would be. I still don't think it's a septic field, but since I have no idea what it would be, I'll link the video if you want to go see it and give your opinion on what you think it might be. The joys of new home ownership and learning all these new things. Bed they used weed barrier as a weed suppressant, so I need to dig it out. Right now the only thing I have is this rose in, which is doing well. It's a Bathsheba David Austin rose. I'd love to pull this boxwood and this boxwood and actually use them as anchor plants in the front. And we need to dig out the arborvitae stumps and kind of curve this bed out because I have plants I want to put in here. And it is a high sun area. And also I want to, landscape this as well. Lots and lots of area to make a difference and improve things. There's just a lot that I want to do, and things are going to slow down a little bit as we enter July and August and deal with the heat. We'll be working in the shade more. We'll probably do a little bit of often in that bed that I told you we need to dig landscape fabric out because it bakes in the sun, the one at the back of my house. It's shaded in the morning, so we probably have like early morning, an hour or two before it just radiates. And we'll just do a little bit of often. We'll keep tucking away at projects. And I think this is a great time to kind of capture what the garden is looking like at this moment. Already we've added so many plants that next year in June we'll have a beautiful showing, and I'm sure throughout the season we'll get even more in the ground. Not to mention it's a great point in time to reference at the end of the season when I look back at all that I've already done, but all that I'm sure is yet to be, and say, gosh, that's what it was looking like in June. Here's everything that I've done since then. So I hope you found this enjoyable. If you're new to my channel, I suggest you go view my new house garden tour, which shows you the blank slate that I was working with and everything beforehand. I'll link that one below as well as the March one. And I can't wait to have you join me in this garden's journey as we build it up together. It's a bit of a blank slate. I have grand plans, as I've mentioned, and I would really like if you would join me in that endeavor. We are going to be headed back to the cottage in the next couple videos to see projects that I've already done, and then we will be sure to do a late June garden tour as well. So if you don't want to miss any of that, please hit subscribe so you can follow along on our journey. If you like this video, hit the like button and leave a comment below if you have something that you'd like to learn more about or anything else that you think would be interesting for me to know. I really appreciate the wisdom you guys have to offer and the learning I've done from you, not just for people like Tina, but even the bits and bobs here and there has helped me improve. So thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it, and I can't wait to see you next time. Bye-bye.